Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's In. Bobo here. So, I don't know why this thread came through my mind, but about a week ago I began thinking about this, so it's time to start talking about it. I got to thinking about how much gratitude I have for God for making me a pilot instead of a snake oil salesman. I never would have made it in the snake oil business. To wit, I think the story has a beginning with Ron H., a man I flew with at Northwest Airlines. Now, I met Ron on the DC-9 when I was flying co-pilot, and we got to talking about our experience, as we so typically do when you first pair up. And it turns out we were both stationed at Karat at the same time in 1974. He was in an F4 unit, and I was flying Rescue 130s, but we never did run into each other or know each other. But be that as it may, I developed a deep respect for Ron and still hold it to this day. He was kind of a mentor to me in the airline business. Anyway, so we're flying along this one day, and we got to talking about other ventures we might have. Aside being an airline pilot, and he was telling me about some investments that he made. One of them being he bought into a trailer park or RV park, whatever, down on the Gulf Coast. And he said, looked at me, he said, "You know what happens to trailer parks on the golf course?" And I said, "Yeah, I imagine a lot of things." He said, "Hurricanes." He said he ended up owning a few, or partial owning a few nice slabs of concrete. So he said, "You think I'd learn my lesson there?" He said, "But I didn't." He says, "My next venture was an orchard, some kind of another up in either Tennessee," I think he said, maybe Kentucky, but I think Tennessee. He says, "You know what happens to orchards?" I said, "Oh, I can imagine." He said, "Freezes." So he said, I ended up owning some shares in a bunch of sticks. So anyway, we kind of chuckled about that. And here, a week or so, I got to thinking about some of the things that I tried after retirement from the Air Force. So I'm going to share those with you today. Just take it lightly. That's all it's meant for. I don't know why this brain of mine just can't seem to settle down, but it continually rolls. So the first thing I did is when I got, pardon the interruption, I didn't prepare well. There we go. So the first thing I did when I retired from the Air Force, I didn't have anything to do. I had 13 airline applications out, so I started playing around with an idea I'd been carrying about for years. And what it was a takeoff on a logbook that I'd seen down in Australia. And as it turns out, it's through the British Empire, if you will. The British Air Forces, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, I have no reason to doubt South Africa and so forth, when their young men and women come into the service, into the flying corps, they issue them a logbook. And I thought, how cool is that? We get a computer printout. Boring. So anyway, I took a look at their logbook for the Royal Australian Air Force, and I thought, that is just so darn neat. But I hesitated to go any further with it while I was on active duty, lest some geek try to claim it was the property of the Air Force. So anyway, I just put it on the back burner. When I retired then, I came out with this logbook, and I called it, take a wild guess, the Pilot's Flying Logbook. And I put a set of wings on it. And it was remarkably simple in its design. What I did, I just mirrored the Form 8 throughout the logbook. Now, you're not going to see the detail here, but you kind of get the idea. And then it had a place, it was just, all you had to do was take your Form 8 printout, if you didn't log everything every day, and just transpose it to this page. So, just for grins, I just randomly open this page, and I see down here, Bill Ferrier, 18 landings. So, it was a 1.2 contact ride at Randolph. that was a day Bill Ferrier and I took off. Didn't have any particular place to go. Might have been a weather day. We just took off, stayed in the pattern, flew 18 landings. Okay then. And I can, if I ever get bored with other stories, I can open this book and tell you a story about all kinds of things in here. And then in the back I listed sim time, all kinds, like I said, all kinds of things. My flight record of service. So in here I've got the dates from when to when. Okay, 2404-70 to 2404-71, Randolph Air Force Base, undergraduate pilot training. Supervisor was our class commander, Captain John McBroom, who later, Boomer, became a one-star. And I've got all my squadron commanders in here and just all kinds of stuff that I can crank up stories for you with later on if I get to that point. Anyway, so I designed this logbook. I reached out to the Air Force, presented it to them. They weren't interested. Okay. So then I reached out to the Base Exchange, and they weren't interested. But they said they would honor requests from, clothing sales stores. So I called each one of the clothing sales stores, told them what I did, and a few of them tried it out, and I sold a fair few of them. But I wasn't going to quit my day job at Northwest, that's for sure. Okay, so that went fine. I don't know how many of those I eventually sold. I don't know. But like Ron and the trailer park and the, the orchard, I lost my butt on it. Anyway, not to be deterred, I came up with another idea, a scrapbook for military pilots, or for military members. This was a little bit more encompassing and so forth. And it's a nice padded scrapbook, and then it's a loose leaf, and then you can, with archival pages in there, you could put all kinds of documents in here. Anything you wanted. And so that was that idea. I did pretty well on that. Never broke even, I don't think. But I had fun with it, I guess you'd say. Again, the BX, they tell you they like to do business with small business. They don't. Don't kid yourself. So anyway, I worked my ass off on that, but it went really nowhere. So I had a ton of these till I started giving them away, and I was happy to do that. Then, sometime in late 90s, I read a book by Mary Edwards Worsh called Military Brats, Legacies of Childhood Inside the Fortress. And I'm going to speak a little bit more to this in subsequent videos. At any rate, suffice to say, she talked about one of the things that military brats deal with is we go through our lives virtually unknown to others. We grow up all over the place. And when we leave home, we never see the kids that we grew up with. We never experience the, the hometown swimming holes and things like that. To wit, I went to 4 different high schools in 3 different countries when I went through high school. Somebody said, "Where do you go to high school?" I don't know. 2 in Massachusetts, 1 in France, and 1 in Germany. How's that? At any rate, I read that book in the late 90s or early 2000s, and then in 2009, I happened to pick it up again and read it. And I thought, why hasn't anyone ever recognized these kids that contribute as much as we did to the United States military, to the country of the United States? So I began a campaign to reach out to Congress to have them create some sort of recognition for the service and commitment of military kids. Well, that gained a little bit of traction initially, but then the representative I went through, Bob Latta in Northwest Ohio, he was a junior congressman. He did not have any juju at all, and it kind of died by the vine. It did make it through as far as proposed legislation, but then it just died without support from some of the heavy hitters. Okay, fine. So then I was doing an interview on the Brat Pen, as I eventually called it, on my effort. And this interviewer says, well, if you can't get Congress to do it, why don't you do it yourself? And I thought, well, great idea. So I created a pen called the Brat Pen, and it featured a dandelion, and then it featured the flowers coming out and spreading throughout the world. You can see a little bit of it there, if I get the glare off of it. You get the idea. There we go. And the dandelion is the official flower of the military child because we thrive anywhere we go. We land and we thrive, and then we move on. And it's kind of the way it is. And I surrounded the pen. The pen was just a little lapel pen. I surrounded it, or bordered it, with a dog tag chain. Again, the theory of my stories here, and kind of the theme of my stories here that runs through them, is one of honor, one of loyalty, one of integrity. And that dog tag chain symbolized honoring our parents. That was what that was all about, for protecting us during those years of childhood as we grew up on different installations and so forth. At any rate, I sunk a huge sum of money into that venture, and I did okay with it. Did I make anything off it? Oh, hell no. But that never was my intention. But again, my intention wasn't to lose my ass either. But like Ron, I can really relate to him today. Somewhere north of $30,000, I would say, is what I eventually put into it, and hardly recovered anything from it. But be that as it may, all of these things, I did have fun. I enjoyed it. One of the things it taught me was to stick with flying. So that's kind of what I resigned myself to do. At any rate, when I began telling these stories to you a couple of years ago, I started out very, very modestly. Matter of fact, I was scared as hell of that little green dot up there. You know, I could relate to some of those early 50s TV shows where the guys look, are we on now? Anyway, but I can tell you with all these ventures that I initiated, for the time being, I did enjoy them. I don't really know if I was looking to make a ton of money off of them. I certainly didn't, but that's not the point. The point is all those were more or less capital ventures, and that was fine. But what it brought me to realize was I'm not looking to gain one silly nickel off of these stories I share with you. I could care less. I just so much enjoy coming upstairs here, sitting down, and talking with you about the things that we experienced in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. My God, is that a lot of fun. And it's also fun to get your feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And there's been a couple of you that have said, hey, this is the way this happened in my class, or this happened in my class. And, you know, that's great. At any rate, I'm humbled by your attention. I'm glad that maybe you can relate to some of these stories. And I hope you have as much fun hearing them as I do telling them to you. So that's what this is all about. And Ron, thanks for the inspiration. Take care, guys. This is Bobo, Base Gear Stop.